And thus I had died and I had ended up in the red fog. We ran up the hill and crossed the rice-filled path until we made it to the simple outhouse. Seriously, what's going on? And sure, that was a hell of a mess, but this won't protect me, right? My mind was pretty clear by this point, so as much I began to wonder why it clouded until now. Because of that, I could easily understand exactly what Chimi just said, despite how weird it was. I could see she was really desperate. At that moment, my head was flooded with information. It felt like my mind was crushed by a million sheep. Crap again, with this timing at such a chaotic moment. I had lots of things to think about, but that had been a waste of this loop. I would start by calming down. Chimi.
Nani?
You still don't remember. Nice to meet you, Chimi-chan.
Sokka. So datta. Okurebase nagara, hajimemashite, Haruaki.
Don't make a sound.
Yamero! Honki dattan dakara.
Since we started sharing memories every loop, one of us, mostly Chimi, always forgot something, leaving it to the others to remember.
今回なんか試すの？夜は私なんだかんだ苦手なんだけど。
Yeah, don't force yourself. I have an idea.
戻ってこれる？
Probably not. What are you
さ
gonna
っ
do?
さと自殺しよっかな。
Man, that's not a good habit to pick up. What if we have it by the time everything's
そう
solved?
だね。良くない傾向だ。とりあ
Sorry, what you'll
え
try?
ずやすくんにモーションかけてみるとか。
Oh, go right ahead.
怒った？
No, it'd be weird if I was.
だよね。
Of course.
嘘だよ。そんなのしない。
I see.
じゃあまた。
Had I been attacked just now? It's no big deal. I could easily control my feelings towards people. Man, why was I so mad? I needed to get a hold of myself. I now, by myself, was there me to do. I just remembered. I tried to solve that problem. There probably wouldn't be a solution. But if I didn't try, I felt like there would be a trap waiting for me. I at least expected it. And so I went north to Yasumi Zoo. The trinket near the graveyard was where that person supposedly lived. Naturally, it was empty. Then again, not much time passed. I hid in a bush not far away and watched the dwelling as the mist covered it. Just as I expected, the corruption, too, came after me. I knew the old man. He showed up. The old man who cried wolf. He had done some strange things over the loops, but always ended up dying. I assumed that his senility was just an act, but I still didn't know the truth, though I gained more reason to suspect him recently. I loved to expose him for who he was. I continued holding my breath and watching him. Apparently in the hut he was carrying around a lot of dirty cloth bags. I saw it from behind the shabby hall here. The state of the place was one of the reasons that I suspected him. Could this place, which had more holes in it than outhouses, really be used for sheltering? Over the many loops, I realized that there were two primary dangers here in Yasumi Zoo. One of the bringer of the corruption, and the rabid dogs, and there were werewolves-like creatures that were probably great Lord Shinai's servants. You could beat the former, but not the latter. Normally, the dogs upheld the order of the night, but if the rule breakers dealt with the dogs, that thing appeared, killed the rule breakers, and set things straight. I hadn't escaped that thing once so far. The dog would definitely kill you if you slept in a place so damaged. That was another thing I found suspicious about him. As it turned out, he really didn't have any intentions of staying in his house. Yasumizu was deadly quiet, so it wasn't a good situation to tell him in. I had a feeling any rustling I made by moving around would tip him off. Still, I couldn't just watch him leave. Whatever, I'd just trust that he couldn't hear that far. Even so, I got on all fours and followed him, carefully not to step on any leaves or loose twigs. I climbed over a collapsed okiba, too. I could only hope that wouldn't mean I was cursed or something. Or if I was, I felt like a god would have punished me by now. Weren't we outside of Yasumizu by now? Yasumizu's area was like a scar cut from the land, surrounded by cliffs. Was it okay as long as we didn't cross a cliff? In that case, I really should have looked into the overgrown area a bit more. There was still many things I could try. It wasn't the time to despair. But damn, the old wolf guy seemed to know exactly where he was going. Was his hideout nearby? Was that water? Was there a river here? I looked around to find the source of the sound. Felt like it was straight ahead. There was a river in Yasumizu? Wait, where did he go? It was pretty dark right about now. Had I just lost sight of him? But I should still be able to hear him walking around. Did he suddenly vanish? Though if he could actually do that, it explained a lot of things about him. I had to find him. Carefully though, I couldn't forget that he killed Mochi once. What if he had already noticed me and I was walking into an ambush? That wasn't the case. He just wasn't here. I had to find him. No way. There were two main things I found out as I walked around this area. There were no people here, and the sound of water were coming from below. Apparently there was an underground waterway beneath here. When I stomped on the ground, it made a hollow sound. It's probably used for the paddy fields. Water came from the settlement above and flowed into Saranaga. It must have been dug a long time ago and was still used in today. Perhaps this place was inhabited before. Wait, even if they could drink water from the wells, paddy fields needed a richer source of water, didn't they? What was the source? Again, there was no river in Yasumizu. It had only a little pond. The documents from the Nosato's mansion mentioned that Yasumizu had water carried and graded from Kami Fujiyoshi. Was that it? In that case, it was a pretty major piece of property. How did they maintain it? Even if it was buried underground, didn't it get blocked every now and then? Would it be possible for there to be no people going in and out of it? About the wolf guy's disappearance. Could he have entered the waterway? If there was some sort of secret entrance here, he went through it when I wasn't looking. It was already dark out, so I took out a flashlight from my bag and pointed it at the surface. The dogs would arrive soon. I had to find it before then. Is this it? There was a patch of ground that was higher than the rest. It could easily be mistaken for just irregularity of the terrain, but if it wasn't, I put my finger in. Felt something made of stone inside. Felt like someone was messing the ground around here daily. Wouldn't this open if I turned it around? I did it. The stone plate that covered the waterway was lighter than expected. I could now hear the water clearly. The waterway was unexpectedly large. A single person could easily walk through it. They crouched a bit. Had the old wolf guy gone through here too? Even if he hadn't, surviving the night by hiding here would be a new thing for me. I could try it. Flashlight in mouth, I went inside. I returned the plate, though. I didn't know if the dogs would come after me, but I could probably fool the thing. And in I went. It'd be completely dark here if I didn't have my flashlight. The water here was only about 3 centimeters deep, but the flow was pretty fast. There seemed to be a lot of stones on the bottom. It was unexpectedly well designed. The hard surface made it impossible to slip, but it's pretty dangerous for me here if the current got any faster. I'd be carried straight to Sanranaga, be a water slide of death. I had to start by searching in the opposite direction. The waterway slightly curved as I continued walking. I could breathe normally, but the tunnel was extremely claustrophobic. Where I was right now, I walked 100 or so steps, so I had to be at least under the plaza. Suddenly, I realized something. The flow had stopped. The water had begun flowing below me. It's just a small trickle now. There had been a decent flow coming from above. Ahead, had someone stopped it? I had a bad feeling about this. It was a night. If someone was controlling the water, it couldn't have been someone from Yasumizu. I tried pushing up, but nothing happened. Also, going to the surface at this time meant certain death. I had to continue. So I pressed on. The dry tunnel began to widen. I could walk normally now. It was a large underground passage that they created by digging through bedrock. Like I expected, there was a major setup here. As I thought, I saw a tunnel to the side. It started at about my waist level. Even if the water was running, it wouldn't flow in here. I felt like I could crawl inside, but for now, I just tried going forward. There were more and more tunnels at the side. The main waterway became more complex, with 90-degree angles. When I got a high waist step and took a break, I heard a sound. It was coming from far away ahead. It's familiar to me. The sound of claws on heavy floor. Ragged breathing. Growls full of uncontainable bloodlust. The feeling that there was a pack nearby. Dogs. Crap, what could I do here? Enter a tunnel? I looked inside a tunnel and lit it up with my flashlight. I couldn't see anything inside. No, there were dogs in there too. There's no safe place here. I had no choice but to run back. That was then when... That voice. I directed the flashlight at the source of the voice. In one of the tunnels above, as high as my waist, the old wolf guy looked at me as the light made his eyes cover his eyes. Sorry, are you okay? It's dangerous here. Excuse me? Really? I knew it. Please help. Please help me. The old man turned around and crawled deeper into the tunnel. I was supposed to follow him, huh? I felt like I was getting closer to the truth. There were many beasts behind me. I gulped, intense as all hell, crouched, entered the hole. I had to crawl for about a minute while lighting up the old wolf guy's ass like we were in some type of theme park attraction. With, with those words, he entered a larger space. I followed after him. It was a room. Neither large nor small. It was about the size of maybe 4.5 Tommy mats. It seemed to be made of wood. The humidity in here had made everything moldy. It looked like an antique workmanship to me. I crawled inside, and once I stepped in, I felt something other than a rock under my feet. It's really unstable. Confused, I tried to use my flashlight to see, but there was when the wolfman lit a match. A match? He used it to light up a lamp. That made the place bright. I finally realized this place was literally a dump. There were pieces of cloths, vinyl bags, plastic bottles filled with liquid I didn't want to know about. The entire floor was covered in such things where we were walking. This had to be the place where he slept. As I continued around, the wolfman pushed me away from the entrance. A 1, a 2, then he pushed the heavy-looking stone object back over the door, shutting us in with the heavy thud. I didn't want to, but I had no choice. He went deeper in and sat down on a pile of garbage, so I did the same. I felt myself sinking to the floor. He took something from the cloth bag he brought and extended it to me. It was a bread roll inside a plastic bag, specifically one made by the most famous makers of the stuff. You know, you could get this anywhere. However, it was weird to see it in Yasumizu. It was a settlement detached from the outside economy, so it didn't fit at all. Yet this place seemed to have tons of such stuff. I'll have it then. I looked at the surface of the bag. It was made then half a month ago. It wasn't even past its best before date. Where did you get it? He gave me a cracked teacup, and this was a transparent liquid. What's this? What is it? Sake. I took it and smelled it. I wasn't sure about it. It did seem like alcohol, but I wasn't too sure about what to think of it as a little bug in here. Tequila. I didn't mind drinking it, but I had to make my own position clear. Thank you for helping me. I came here to talk to you. You act like you don't know anything, but you do, right? I came here to ask about the feast of the Omi Purge. You survived the previous feast. I want to talk to you about that. Okay. I gulped down the content of the teacup. It was rotten, but I was able to gulp it down without vomiting. Thank you, old wolf guy. Or should I call you the main culprit behind the 20 murderous Fujiyoshi break-ins? Oh. I knew it. According to the information in the Sato Mansion, the murder incident was concluded with the trial and execution of the self-admitted culprit. However, the trial wasn't based on the thorough examination of the circumstances. One of the largest murder sprees in Japan's history was said to have been done in about half an hour with only a kitchen knife. People that questioned this as well, but the confession took precedence over all and was considered enough evidence to deliver the punishment. I couldn't really blame them, though it was a time of chaos with the war and all. However, if you consider the idea that there was multiple culprits, some things made more sense. Due to the distance and difference in quality of life, the people of Kami Fujiyoshi didn't know much about Yasumizu. And there was also the fact that there were supposed murders. Isn't mentioned in Kami Kami Fujiyoshi at all until he turned himself in. That meant that the witnessing hadn't known about what Yasumizu people were up to. When the police went to Yasumizu to investigate it, at their confession, the people only said things that supported the idea that he'd done it. This meant that the people at Yasumizu weren't aware of these actions and that those who weren't suspected could easily have been complicit in it. The old wolf guy had been considered not of sound mind for a long time, so he had been ignored. That hadn't changed even now. It had gotten to the point that no one cared. He had just vanished in thin air or disappeared for no apparent reason. Considering his character alongside the timing of the incident, he had been in his 30s then. And that his mental state was just an act. I could easily conclude that he was the type of man who could commit murder. He was true evil hiding Yasumizu, a serial murderer who escaped divine punishment, survived.
なんじゃ、とうとう身車が俺を覗こうとして来させたか。いや、それにすりゃおかしい。おめえ、この地下道にえらく不慣れじゃねえか。わからねえな。あ？おめえ警察かわけえの。
I'm someone who wants to stop the feast of the Yomi Purge.
そうしそら豪気なこったわけえの。身車とことを構えようってか。バカなことを。
I know that the Meguro are directly responsible for the feast and that this won't be easy. I'm not here to expose your past crimes. I just need your opinion. You're someone who broke the laws of both Yasumizu and Fujiyoshi collectively, after all. He went quiet, and
俺にゃうまみがねえなわけえの。
he made an expression that was new to me, a display of unconcealed malice. What? The next moment, I heard a sound behind me and turned around.
来やがったか。
It was the sound of claws scratching on the boulder, covering the entrance. It was accompanied by growls, the bringers of the corruption.
そこまで知っててなんで来たか計り知れねえな。
He probably wouldn't understand if I told him that I had nowhere else to go. You plan to avoid the situations by closing yourself in this place like this.
ほら今安全じゃ。食うて寝るだけの悠々自適。なんの不自由もねえ。宴が来りゃ適当に遊んでここに隠れりゃええ。なんの不自由もねえんだよ。へへへ。
He intentionally twisted his laughter as his shoulders shook. You'd be uncomfortable if people found out about your crimes, wouldn't you? Also, why are you so confident that it's safe here? You think you can hide from Gururama for so long?
忍なんか勘違いしとるか。身車は俺のことなぞとっくに知っておる。身車の目のことは知っとるのか。ならなぜ聞いて。ははおめえ俺を引っ掛けようとしたな。
I'd already confirmed that the Migurarama had a surveillance network spanning all of Yasumizu. There were tunnels too. The scratching dogs behind me made it clear they were commencing the feast, In that case, there was no way they didn't see this place. That meant that they knew about this old man hiding on the ground. Hell, the fact that he had been given the role of the badger made it clear that he was involved in the feast. His situation wasn't like mine from the first time, when the Migurama simply didn't see me, but didn't put me in the feast. There could only be one answer to this. The Migurama knows about you and uses you for the feast, but they aren't trying to take your life. Is that because your death would be bad for them?
よう舌が回るな。この年になりゃ、それだけで羨ましい。
Can you answer me?
いいとも。眠気が来るにゃ、まだ時が早い。
Well now, I silently prepared myself. His story could be summed up like this. He was indeed the culprit, a serial killer who killed about 10 people in the incident back in the 1940s. However, the one who had the idea was Tochitanishi. Tochichi Taneshi was a Kumi Fujiyoshi person sent to Yasumizu, though he wasn't a violent sort. He constantly grumbled about it and couldn't get used to the life here no matter what.
それをおら煽ったのよ。やりゃあええ。好きにすりゃあええ。それだけ繰り返してな。
If that had really been all that had been done, Tochitani had been pretty murderous to begin with. It was bad enough that he actually went through with his feeble-minded friend's ideas. Anyways, that led to the plan, if you could call that. Now on that day it was time to kill. The old wolf guy had been given. Once they were drunk, they both covered themselves in Saranaga's mud and moved out. I asked if it had something to do with Fujiyoshi myth, and the answer was yes. To match what I learned in Nosato's mansion, the origin of the Yomibeto legend was that the Yosumizu rebels. The old wolf guy was probably the reason why ex-Kumi Fujiyoshi person found out about Yasumizu's legend. Anyways, still drunk and looking for Yamiboto began the massacre. The old wolf guy covered himself, secretly washed as he stole valuables from the place. He mentioned that the burglary was his main objective, since he didn't want to leave any evidence and wanted to make sure it seemed like the massacre was the goal. He only took bills from wallets. I had a hard time deciding whether using a mass murder to get rich was so or blunt, though at the moment something he didn't expect to happen.
面白いもんでな。俺らの姿見たやつらみんなビビって誰も抵抗なんざしねえ。ならやってみようか。どうせみんなあいつのせいになるならよ。そう思うが人ってもんだろうが。あら、面白かったぞ、わけえの。
No comment. The fact that no one resisted was related to the absolute loyalty and the faith that the Nasato looked into. In a way, we went in to kill over a dozen people, steal lots of valuables, and escape. He washed off the mud, returned to his place, and looked through his spoils. It was a real piece of paper he found inside an envelope with money. He quickly understood what it meant, and it was huge. Tochitani escaped, turned himself into the police in Tokyo, claiming it was all his doing.
やつは昇進のケチでの。じゃが逃げる根性だけは座っとったな。ひひ。
However, while the national reports on the serial killings subsided, things had started to change with Fujiyoshi. The village heads with their associates had begun visiting Yasumizu more and more. For unknown reasons, more and more were sent to Yasumizu. A while later, a real feast of the Yomi Purge began. The old wolf guy hadn't participated in many conversations in Yasumizu, so he only found this during the first feast. Apparently, Migurama had been acting shady, and it was all because they were searching for something. The something was stolen from one of the murder scenes. They talked, and it might have been something necessary for their rituals, like a talisman or something. They even speculated that the Okami returned because it was lost. As the rumor mill churned, the old wolf guy was the only one who knew the truth. It was the thing he found. It was something that'd be bad for the Migurama. What was it? Human trafficking? But that wasn't so uncommon back then. What do you mean?
他人間がどこにもいねえ。そもそもやらす仕事もねえ。
They used them for their messed up rituals and experiments.
おお、さえとるなわけの。なんぞ知らんが、人聞きのええ事情じゃなく。そんなもんは身車みてえな家は一等漏れるのを嫌うもんじゃ。じゃから宴なんつう茶番をぶち寄った。そうしてりゃ怖くもなんともねえ。へへ。
That meant that the old wolf guy was the only one who knew that the phenomena that started it all was just a Migurama conspiracy. It had been bad for them if the scandal spread throughout Fujiyoshi. It could potentially undermine both the local faith and their influence. They frantically debated how to preserve their secret, and with it, their authority. If you looked at it from a certain angle, it was just to prevent another Yamibito rebellion. The main cause of this was actually basically God again. I saw how it was now. Anyways, the old wolf guy knew this truth. Thus he used his guile, got into his target's head, and tried to figure out what were we doing. That was how he found this waterway.
とるなんざ誰でも知っとる。じゃから安水のもんはそれがどんなもんかし、それでも見つけたもんはもちろん俺はな、ちゃんとな。
That was the core of the matter. He somehow established contact with Migurama and told him that he had the contract and that he'd go public if he died. If they didn't want that, they had to ensure his safety. He used the info as hostage to protect himself. It was an action movie plot, but could it actually work in real life? Fujiyoshi was a small village. If he asked someone here to reveal the truth, he died, they could just take care of that person too. I asked about that and he said that he had a contract in Tokyo. This was when I found out that he wasn't born in Yasumizu. It's probably like the me who tried to move to Yasumizu right here as a drifter. He was pure evil, a scumbag who would come here to deceive people and commit terrible acts. Anyways, the villains, the prey villains, met to create a villainous pact. Every year he went outside the village, secretly reached out to his contract in Tokyo. If he didn't show up even once, his contract would reveal. If they didn't want that, they had to keep him alive. Of course I had questions. What would happen if the old wolf guy died a natural death? Or if Mikurama became unable to keep their end of the deal because the leader changed or something. In response to that, he said that it was a battle of wits. The Mikurama weren't actually certain that the old wolf guy's deaths would mean that their secret would come out. He probably didn't think that his weapon had survived the whole 60 years, made it to the modern era. Also, it was a question whether such an old scandal would deal much damage to the modern. They were still afraid of the worst scenario case though. To allay their fears and buy more time, they left the old man alive. It costs more than if it costs any more though, it had been removed a long time ago. Old Wolfman's guy's own words. It showed a skill in negotiating particular to villains. I see, so you can enter this place because you're on a secret contract. And you can do things against the law of the feast because the corruption won't apply to you. Is that how it is?
面白い話だろうが、おめえだけじゃ。これまでにこの話を俺に聞いてきたのはよ。
How was I to process this? That it was possible to negotiate with the Migarama? No way. Like he said, his deal was only accepted because of the small price they were paying. They'd never agreed to stop the feasts of the Yomi Purge. They wouldn't tolerate my goal. I could only achieve it by making an enemy of them. In fact, stopping the feast wasn't even my ultimate goal at this point. That meant this time, the only thing I gained, physical protection in the form of the underground waterway. Oh, there was another thing. I realized I couldn't let my guard around this person. That wasn't good enough for me. So when will it start working? I mean, the booze you gave me was poison, right?
何を言うとる。
Don't play dumb. Keeping you safe is cheap, as if. You're an insane villain who breaks the deal at any moment. No normal villain would you be. Such exchanges normally involve a mediator of sound mind and without anyone feeling wronged. There has to be another reason why you kept you alive, such as something that made your life beneficial to their projects, and so you could have assigned to take care of anyone who saw things they shouldn't have. Having cameras wasn't enough. You also needed an on-site operator to dole out punishments, otherwise you'd have to send out people every time it happened. It was better if less people knew about these dark happenings. In that case, it's best to leave the protection of the secrets to Yasumizu's traders. Basically, he was.
毒なんざちーと慣れてねえやつがしびれるぐれえだ。
It's just something that's numbing for whoever's not used to it. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't feel my legs. It wasn't because I had been sitting for too long. I tried to let it show on my face. He started rummaging through the garbage.
まあ、後でええか。
He took out something I could never forget. The mask piece of the wolf outfit. After tossing it aside, he put his hand in another mountain of trash, took out something else. It was a dagger.
若えのおめえもよ俺と似たようなようよう見とるようようわかっとるそんでちーとくたびれてにおめえは俺の若え時にそっくりだ
Oh, how I wanted to spare me that shit.
まあじゃが諦めこの村はもう俺でたくさんだ
He was right.
さあ8年ぶりの人殺しじゃ
You were a wolf 8 years ago, weren't you?
あら面白かった
How many wolves did you kill until then?
狼3匹のうちせがれだけよカラスのわしには分かった
In the feast 8 years ago, the mist had cleared with only one of the wolves dead. If Gin's son, the one who knew about the badger, was the third one, had been around, it wasn't guaranteed that it was the old wolf guy, but it turned out the truth was always the worst possible option. One more thing. Have you met God? He had to have. It didn't matter he was an outsider. Even Kori-san, come here from Tohoku-ku, had been infected by it. He couldn't have been the exception to that. If he really was a scumbag like me, admitting that he submitted to a god must have been extremely humiliating for him. He didn't reply. This god garden. If you're that smart, you could have escaped far away from here. You have no future. I thought my words would make me get back at him a little. I didn't want to completely lose this time, but he laughed.
若えのいいかここは神の庭なんかじゃねえ俺の砦だどこへ逃げようがよてめえの砦より安全な場所はねえんだよ守るには砦がいる侍の頃と何にも変わらねえそんなことも知らねえもんが神なんざ形のねえもんにすがって怯えんだよ
Then the numbness was starting to get to my lips. You were never afraid of God.
神なんざ怖くねえ人が作ったもんなら殺せる未来はねえと言ったな俺はもう95じゃ未来がどうと
Oh, he had a point. I really underestimated him. He was right. He needed a place for protection. And then he had the idea that you could kill God. His serpentine wisdom had let him survive for several decades all by himself. He really was pure evil. The evil I had discovered many loops ago was incomparable to him. He was a true villain. Well, I didn't really mind what happened here. And you know what? Next time we'll continue. See you later.